You live surrounded by walls no one else can see. You walk, you work, you smile. But deep down, you're trapped. It's your own thoughts that build those walls. Thoughts that repeat over and over until they chain you to fear, doubt, and anxiety. That's your mental prison. A place where you become your own prisoner. Marcus Aurelius said it clearly. Life depends on what you choose to think. And if your mind is full of chains, no freedom outside will ever be enough. The enemy isn't out in the world, it's within you. My friend, this video is your chance to break those invisible bars. Stoicism can give you the keys, teach you how to take back control, how to quiet that voice that holds you back, and how to finally step out of the cell you never should have built. Stay with me, because every minute you spend locked inside your mind is time you lose from truly living. If you feel this speaks to you, now's the time to take a step forward. Subscribe and join us on this path to inner freedom. And tell us in the comments, what mental chain are you ready to break today? Write this in the comments. Today, I break the bars of my mental prison, because putting it into words is the first blow against the invisible cage. 1. The cell of imaginary fear. Imagine waking up every morning with a shadow following you everywhere. It doesn't matter what you do, whether you're working, studying, or trying to relax, it's there. A shadow that whispers something bad is going to happen, that failure is just around the corner, that someone's going to judge you. That shadow isn't real, but it weighs on you like heavy chains. This is one of the most common mental prisons, the cell of fearing what hasn't even happened yet. And the Stoics warned us long ago, living trapped in what hasn't happened yet is like sentencing yourself to prison twice, because you suffer before the pain comes, and then again when it finally does. Think about it. How many times have you felt trapped inside your own head, going in circles over a problem that hasn't even occurred? You go to bed convinced that tomorrow's meeting will go horribly wrong. You convince yourself that an unanswered message means rejection. You keep telling yourself that if you dare to take that step, it'll end in disaster. And without even realizing it, you're no longer living. You're rehearsing tragedies in your imagination. Seneca put it with brutal clarity. We suffer more in our imagination than in reality. And he was right. In your mental prison, every worry becomes a guard at your door. Every anticipated fear is a lock that keeps you from moving. And the irony? Most of those disasters never even happen. The wall that looked indestructible crumbles into dust. A simple example. A woman named Laura spent entire weeks convinced she was going to lose her job the second she made a single mistake. She checked her emails 20 times, worked overtime, and still couldn't sleep, thinking her boss was just waiting to fire her. The result? They never fired her. In fact, they promoted her. So what was the point of all that suffering? None. It just drained her and made her feel like she was constantly under threat. Psychologists call it anticipatory anxiety. It's the mind's habit of always jumping to the worst-case scenario, as if you had a horror movie director living inside your head, filming the same scary scenes on loop. Science explains it like this. The brain thinks that by imagining the worst, it'll be more prepared. But all it really does is lock you in a dark room full of worries with no way out. Marcus Aurelius had a method to keep himself from getting stuck in that spiral. He would ask, does this really matter? Will it still matter a year from now? A simple question, but it opens the cell. Because most of the things that torment us today, we won't even remember tomorrow. And if they do matter, the only thing that helps is taking action, not obsessing over them. Here's something practical you can start using today. The next time your mind starts spinning horror stories, pause, take a deep breath, write it down on paper. What I fear, has it actually happened? Do I have proof it's going to happen? Most of the time you'll realize you don't. It's just bars painted by your own mind. That simple act of writing it out weakens the thought and creates room for calm. Another Stoic strategy. Remember that your mind belongs to you, not the other way around. Epictetus taught this with absolute clarity. It's not things themselves that disturb us, but the opinions we have about them. What does that mean? It's not the meeting or the unanswered message or someone's look that traps you. It's the meaning you give it in your head. And that meaning you can change. My friend, breaking free from this mental prison doesn't mean getting rid of fear entirely, because fear will always exist. It means learning not to blindly obey it. It means realizing you can open the door and walk through, even when the voice inside you says it's dangerous. Now imagine how your life would change if instead of wasting energy on worst-case scenarios, you used it to build the ones you actually want. If every time a dark thought showed up, you saw it for what it is, a paper-thin guard, and walked right through it. That's real freedom. Not the absence of fear, but the ability to move forward even when fear tries to hold you back. Ask yourself, what's the use of this thought? Does it help me move forward, or does it keep me stuck? That's the key. Because any thought that doesn't help you live better doesn't deserve your attention. Life won't wait for you to stop being afraid. But it will give you the chance to start breaking free, starting today. And every time you choose to take action instead of worrying, you're breaking another bar of that mental prison. 2. The echo of what you feed. Imagine living in a dark, damp cell. At first, the silence is unbearable, so you start talking to yourself just to feel less alone. What you don't realize is that every word you say bounces off the walls and comes back louder, turning into the voice that will stay with you day and night. If you speak with fear, the echo multiplies that fear. If you speak with hate, the echo brings back more hate. What you feed grows, and in a mental prison, that echo can be your worst enemy or your greatest ally. The same thing happens with your mind. If every day you repeat that everything is going wrong, your mind will find 1,000 reasons to prove you right. If you convince yourself that people always let you down, you'll interpret every gesture as betrayal. Not because it's true, but because you fed that belief until it became enormous. It's like feeding a crow. The more you give it, the more it comes back. Think about it. What would happen if each morning you chose to feed different thoughts? Instead of, I'm a mess, you told yourself, I can improve. Instead of, everything is hard, reminded yourself, I've overcome worse. Marcus Aurelius wrote, the happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. And the surprising part is, he didn't mean it as poetry. He meant it as a mental survival guide. Let me tell you something. I know the story of Daniel, a young musician who dreamed of living off his art. Every time he got on stage, he would tell himself, I'm going to mess up. No one will take me seriously. The result? Sweat, shaking hands, forgotten songs. Not because he couldn't play, but because he'd trained himself to fail before he even began. His prison wasn't the applause or the criticism, it was the voice he had amplified in his mind for years. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. We see what confirms what we already believe. If you think you're incapable, you'll look for proof of that. If you think everyone's judging you, every glance will feel like a sentence. And just like that, the bars grow thicker. But if you change the script, your mind starts to search for proof that you can too. Here's a practical challenge. For one full day, observe every negative thought and swap it for something more helpful. If your mind says this is impossible, respond with, I'll do it step by step. If it says, I'm not good at this, answer with, I'm learning. It's not about fooling yourself with empty phrases. It's about training your inner echo to send back something that holds you up, not tears you down. Seneca, in one of his letters, warned about the habit of complaining. He said that men get lost in sorrowful thoughts and endless lamenting, forgetting that each of us has the power to choose what we let grow inside. And that's the key. You can't control everything that enters your mind, but you can choose what you feed. There's something else we rarely think about: the environment that feeds your mind. You spend hours on social media watching other people's drama, listening to conversations full of complaints, consuming news that only speaks of disasters. What do you expect to grow inside you? It's like watering weeds every day and then being surprised your garden is full of thorns. If you want to break out of your mental prison, You need to close the door on anything that only strengthens your chains. My friend, freedom starts with small decisions. Stop repeating phrases that bury you, and start planting thoughts that lift you up. Stop feeding the monster that says you can't, and start strengthening that voice, however small, that reminds you that you can. Ask yourself now, what echo am I feeding in my mind? Because if it's one that drains your energy, you're reinforcing your bars. But if it's one that pushes you to act, you're starting to break free. And here's the most powerful truth: escaping your mental prison doesn't happen through one heroic act. It happens in the everyday, in how you speak to yourself, in what you choose to consume, in what you decide to repeat. Every thought you feed is like a brick. Are you building a wall that traps you, or a way out that sets you free? The Stoic teaching is clear. You're not a slave to your thoughts. You're the guardian who decides what grows in your mind. And every time you choose to plant clarity instead of fear, you're carving a hole through that invisible cell. And now, I want you to really think about this. What have you been feeding most in your mind lately? Fear or confidence? Answer in the comments, because putting it into words is already the beginning of breaking your chains. And if you don't know what to write, leave this phrase: "Today I choose to feed my freedom." That way we'll know you're ready to step out of your mental prison. 3. The key is letting go. Imagine walking forward with a backpack on your shoulders. At first, it barely weighs anything. But little by little, you start adding things. A mistake that still hurts. A memory you can't forgive. A betrayal you keep reliving. A comment that left a mark. Each load seems small, but together they turn into a weight that keeps you from taking another step. That backpack is your mental prison. There are no bars in sight, but you're chained to everything you refuse to let go of. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Man is more often troubled by his own thoughts than by actual events." And he was right. It's us who keep those memories alive, who replay the words that hurt us, who renew the pain every time we bring it back. That's exactly what happened to my friend Marta. For years, she lived trapped in a thought that consumed her. I made the wrong choice. I ruined my life. She wanted to be a designer, but ended up working in a gray office buried under papers that meant nothing to her. At first, she'd say, "It's just temporary. I'll change soon." But months passed, then years, and that sentence turned into a whip she used on herself every single day. Every time she saw someone doing design work, she felt a stab in her chest. It was as if other people's success reminded her of her failure. She told me she even avoided following certain people on social media, because seeing them achieve what she wanted made her throat tighten with rage and frustration. It wasn't envy. It was the bitter feeling of living someone else's life. What's strange is that no one else was judging her. Her co-workers respected her, her family was proud, but inside her mind, the voice was relentless. You failed. You made the wrong choice. You'll never become who you wanted to be. That was her real prison. Not the office, not the schedule, not her boss, but the story she kept repeating. One day, after almost 10 years, Marta told me she couldn't take it anymore. It wasn't the job that was destroying her. It was the guilt. She'd packed so much weight into her mental backpack she could barely move. And then she did something radical. She finally signed up for the design degree she'd always dreamed of. But the hardest part wasn't starting over. The hardest part was letting go of 10 years of self-blame. Letting go of the voice that said it was too late, that it didn't matter anymore, that she'd made an irreversible mistake. She told me, the hardest thing wasn't opening a book again. It was opening the door of my mental cell. And when she did, when she gave herself permission to let go of that guilt, she felt a lightness she hadn't felt in years. And what happened to her is perfectly normal. Our brain prefers to hold on to what's familiar, even if it's harmful, rather than face the unknown. Holding on to a grudge, a mistake, or guilt gives you a false sense of control. It's like a prisoner who becomes so used to his cell that he fears leaving it, simply because he doesn't know what's outside. So now ask yourself, what weight are you still carrying? What burden are you dragging around even though it no longer makes sense? What mistake are you still repeating in your head, even though you already learned from it? My friend, letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means setting yourself free. It means opening your hand so the chain can finally fall to the floor. I want to give you a Stoic exercise. Grab a piece of paper and write down the thought you've been dragging for too long. It could be guilt, resentment, or that one phrase that keeps echoing in your mind. Then tear it up. Not because the problem disappears, but because that simple act reminds you, what you hold on to holds you back, and what you choose to release loses its power over you. Seneca said, "Only the present belongs to us." And it's true. If you fill your present with past burdens, you'll never have space for something new. Every bitter memory takes the place of a new possibility. Every grudge you keep steals your chance to live light. Life isn't going to wait for you to unpack your bag, but every day you choose to let go, even just a little, you're weakening the bars of your cell. That's the key. Freedom doesn't come all at once. It's built moment by moment by releasing what no longer serves you, until one day you realize you're not carrying anything anymore. So next time your mind brings up a memory that hurts, ask yourself this: does this help me or does it keep me trapped? And if it doesn't help, have the courage to let it go. Because only those who dare to release what weighs them down will ever find the way out of their mental prison. 4. It's not the bars, it's the way you see them. The Stoics repeated it for centuries. What hurts us isn't what happens, it's how we interpret it. Epictetus taught this to his students with a clarity that still stuns us today. Men are not disturbed by things, but by the opinions they have about them. And he didn't say this from a life of comfort. He was a slave. If he could find freedom while wearing real chains, how could we not break out of the invisible prisons built by our minds? Think about it. Two people can go through the exact same situation and react in completely different ways. Imagine a subway delay. One person taps their foot angrily, sighs loudly, and mutters, "Nothing ever goes right for me." The other opens a book, listens to music, or just quietly watches the crowd. The train is the same, the delay is the same, but the experience is completely different. One lives as a prisoner of their rage. The other holds on to the freedom of their calm. Marcus Aurelius practiced this every day. He ruled an empire that seemed to be falling apart. Wars, plagues, betrayals. And yet, in his meditations, he didn't complain about the misfortunes of fate. He wrote about how to train the mind to endure it. He asked himself, "Is this within my control?" If the answer was yes, he acted. If not, he accepted it. Because the only thing truly under our control is our attitude. Imagine you've spent weeks planning a special dinner. The oven breaks and the meal is ruined. What do? You could fall apart, say, "Nothing ever works out," and let it ruin the night. Or you could laugh, throw together some snacks, and end up remembering that dinner as the most fun of all. The situation was the same, but the memory you carry depends entirely on the perspective you chose. In that case, Seneca would tell you something like, "A man is only as unhappy as he convinces himself to be." See that? He doesn't say unhappiness depends on money, luck, or the people around you. It depends on the story you tell yourself about what's happening. And that's the key. The story you repeat in your mind can either be the key that opens your cell, or the lock that keeps it shut. So what can you do next time something gets under your skin? Ask yourself the same question Marcus Aurelius did. Can I change this right now? If the answer is no, let it go. Not because it doesn't matter, but because obsessing over it is like banging your head against the bars of your own cell. And if the answer is yes, then stop spinning your wheels in thought and take action. Even if it's just one small step toward the solution. And if it really isn't in your control, then change your approach. Take 3 deep breaths. Move your body. Go for a walk. Open a window. Switch up your environment. And write down what's out of your hands on a piece of paper. Then tear it up. That simple act sends your mind a very clear message. I'm not wasting any more energy on what's not up to me. Here's another Stoic strategy: reduce the problem to its core. Marcus Aurelius did this constantly. If someone insulted him, he'd reframe it like this: just sound in the air. If someone betrayed him, he'd say, a man acting according to his limitations. That habit of stripping things down removed the power of overwhelming emotions. Try it. The next time something shakes you, describe it in the simplest words possible. You'll see the drama start to shrink. My friend, a mental prison isn't always made of major tragedies. Most of the time, it's built from everyday frustrations, small annoyances, broken expectations. You can't control when the world fails you, when people change their minds, or when life shifts your plans. But you can choose whether you'll experience it as punishment or as a chance to build resilience. The Stoics understood this well. It's not about hoping life gets easier. It's about training your mind so that, no matter what happens, it doesn't steal your peace. That's what separates someone imprisoned by their thoughts from someone who finds freedom right in the middle of chaos. So next time it feels like the world is crumbling just because something went wrong, breathe. Ask yourself Marcus Aurelius's question. Remember Seneca's warning, and listen to Epictetus's wisdom. It's not about what happens, it's about how you see it. And that perspective can be the key that opens your mental prison, or the one that locks it for good. 5. Your energy is the key to your freedom. Imagine your energy as gold coins you're handed the moment you wake up. Every argument, every worry, every obsessive thought is like paying a toll. And without even noticing, by the time the afternoon rolls around, your pockets are empty. You've spent your fortune on nonsense, getting upset because someone took too long to reply, arguing with a stranger on social media, replaying in your head a comment someone made without even thinking. And when you really need that energy, you've got nothing left. And on this, the Stoics made something very clear, something we tend to forget. We don't have an unlimited energy reserve. Our mind, just like our body, wears down with every decision, every emotion, every thought. Marcus Aurelius wrote it in his Meditations. If something external troubles you, it's not the thing itself that disturbs you, but the importance you give it. Do you see it? That's the root of the problem. It's not life that drains us. It's how we choose to spend our energy on it. Think about your routine. You wake up and the first thing you do is check your phone. Half an hour of scrolling, watching other people's lives that don't change your own. Then you mentally replay yesterday's argument, thinking of what you should have said. Later, you get angry because someone isn't driving the way you want them to. And little by little, you lose the energy that you could be using to create, to learn, to move closer to your dreams. Is that really how you want to spend your life? That's what it means to live in a mental prison. It's not physical bars. It's the constant leaks of energy that leave you drained. You wake up tired, go through the day with a scattered mind, and go to bed feeling like you didn't move forward. Not because life is impossible, but because you wasted your strength on battles that didn't matter. Seneca explained it with a simple metaphor. He said time slips through our fingers like sand, and energy works the same way. When you waste it on what doesn't matter, it never comes back. And each day you do it, you lock yourself a little deeper into that invisible cell. So, how can you break out of this cycle? Start with something simple. Name what's draining your energy. When you notice your mind spinning around something useless, say it quietly. This doesn't deserve my energy. It may seem small, but that act is like cutting a chain. Because by naming it, you recognize it, and you choose not to keep feeding it. Epictetus had a very clear exercise to avoid wasting himself. He reminded his students that the only things under our control are our thoughts and our actions. Everything else is out of our hands. So the key question becomes, do I really want to spend my strength on what I can't control? Every time you do, it's like handing someone else the keys to your cell. Then, choose, consciously, where you want your energy to go. Don't let it scatter on its own. At the start of the day, think of 2 or 3 things that do deserve your effort. Your health, your work, a meaningful relationship. And every time you catch yourself complaining, go back to your list. Ask yourself, is this bringing me closer to what I want, or is it just keeping me stuck? And here's something else you can't forget. Recharge before it's too late. Don't wait until you're on the edge of burnout to take care of your mind. The Stoics made time for retreat, even brief ones, to return to themselves. Marcus Aurelius called it returning to the soul, like stepping into a quiet room inside yourself. You can do the same in many ways. A few minutes of silence, writing out what's in your head, taking an unhurried walk. These aren't luxuries. They're how you stop the flame from going out. My friend, escaping your mental prison doesn't always mean tearing down massive walls. Sometimes it's enough to close the leaks you've been creating yourself. Because here's the truth. You can't fight every battle. If you try to fight on every front, you'll end up exhausted and chained down. But if you learn to choose where to put your energy, no prison will be able to hold you. Now take a moment and ask yourself, what are you spending most of your energy on each day? Share it in the comments, because writing it down is the first step to becoming aware. And if you're not sure what to say, write this phrase: today I choose to protect my energy. That way we'll know you've started sealing up the leaks in your mental prison. 6. Every mind is a world. Accept it. You've probably lived this before. You say something that to you is just common sense, and the other person looks at you like you're speaking a different language. You insist, rephrase it, even raise your voice a little, but nothing. It's like talking to a wall, and when the conversation ends, you don't feel relief. You feel frustrated. That sense of having wasted your time, your energy, your peace, as if you'd been pounding on the bars of a cell until your hands were sore, and the door never opened. That's where one of the most common mental prisons begins. Expecting others to think like you do, believing that what's obvious should be obvious to everyone. But obvious doesn't exist. What's crystal clear to you might be a thick fog to someone else. And the more you try to impose your view, the more you trap yourself in your own frustration. Marcus Aurelius knew this well. Imagine being emperor of Rome, surrounded by senators only interested in wealth and pleasure. Marcus Aurelius stood for virtue, temperance, and a sense of duty toward others. Do you really think he expected everyone to understand him? Of course not. In his meditations, he reminds himself that every person acts according to their own view of the world. And getting angry because others don't think like you is like asking fire not to burn. If you accept it as part of human nature, you don't lose your peace. But we fall into the trap all the time. You want to help a family member who's struggling. You give advice with the best intentions. You explain they can change, that they have options, that not all is lost. And what do you get in return? Excuses, resistance, a wall. So you argue, insist, wear yourself down, until you're exhausted, stuck in the thought, they should have listened to me. Imagine a typical Sunday lunch. Between dishes and chatter, someone mentions that the town's building a new roundabout at the entrance. You think, finally, something to fix that chaos. But then your uncle snaps, what a waste of money, those things are expensive. Your cousin jumps in, I think it'll look great. And in seconds, what started as a harmless comment becomes a mini battlefield of opinions. You try to explain, you give your reasons, but the more you talk, the more you realize everyone's locked in their own worldview. You leave the table feeling more drained than after an entire week of work. And the problem wasn't the roundabout. It was your expectation that others would see it like you do. That night, instead of resting, your mind keeps spinning. Why don't they get it? Why can't they see? And that's the real trap. The meal is over, the conversation is long gone, but you are still locked inside your own thoughts. My friend, that cell is one you build every time you demand that someone think the way you do. Epictetus said it bluntly, do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happen the way it does and your life will flow smoothly. And that includes how other people think. Expecting them to react how you want is as useless as wishing the sun would rise early. Here's something freeing. You don't have to convince anyone, really. Your job isn't to win arguments or prove you're right. Your job is to live according to what you know is right. When you share an idea, do it calmly, with no expectations. Plant the seed and let it be. Maybe today it won't take root, but one day when life hits that person, They might remember your words, and they might help. Seneca explained it with incredible clarity. The wise man is not the one who gets irritated by others' faults, but the one who learns to endure them. And take note, endure doesn't mean approve of them or always stay quiet. It means not giving your energy to a battle that leads nowhere. It means knowing when to speak and when to walk away. Because often the wisest move isn't winning an argument, it's protecting your peace. When you feel like someone should understand you, pause and say to yourself, everyone sees the world through their own eyes. That reminder breaks the expectation and brings the power back to you. Then decide, is it worth continuing? If the answer is no, change the subject, stay quiet, or simply step away. That's not giving up, it's freeing yourself, because in the end, what traps you isn't other people's ideas, it's your expectation that they should match yours. It's like expecting every key to open the same lock. It's never going to happen. And the more you try, the more frustration you carry. The Stoics never expected a perfect world or perfect people. They trained themselves to endure differences, to live alongside the unpredictable, to stay calm even when everything around them was chaos. And that's the lesson you need today. Others don't need to think like you for you to be free. 7. Don't hand over your happiness to anyone. The Stoics said the greatest freedom is not depending on what isn't in your control. And think about it. What's more important than your own happiness? Picture for a moment that your happiness is a small key, kept safely in your pocket. As long as it's with you, you can open the door whenever you choose. But if you hand it over to someone else, you're suddenly at the mercy of whoever holds it. Your joy, your peace, your mood. They now depend on what someone else does, says, or thinks. Do you really want to live like that? Like a tenant waiting for permission to enter your own home? Most people do it without even realizing. They light up when they're praised at work and sink when no one notices. They feel valuable if they get a message, and like failures if no one replies. They post something on social media, and if the likes don't come, they lose their smile. It's an invisible prison, but very real. Your key is sitting in someone else's pocket. But what would Epictetus say about that? He said, if you depend on someone else to be happy, you've placed your well-being in something you can't control. And what you can't control, my friend, will always be shaky ground, like standing on quicksand. Today it feels solid, tomorrow it swallows you whole. The danger is, you end up living on an emotional roller coaster. If others approve, you go up. If they criticize or ignore you, you crash. And that constant rise and fall, that's not happiness, it's slavery. Seneca put it plainly. The person who needs validation from others is never free because they've placed their peace in the wrong place. Think about daily life. You buy a shirt you love, but if no one compliments it, you second-guess yourself. You cook a meal with joy, but if someone critiques it, the joy disappears. Do you see the pattern? It's not the shirt and it's not the food. It's that you gave away your key. And once you do that, any word becomes a lock. Even Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, understood this deeply. He could have lived obsessed with applause, military victories, the approval of the Senate. But in his meditations, he repeated over and over that true happiness came only from living according to virtue. A man is content when he fulfills his duty, he wrote. And in that line lies the secret. You don't need anyone's approval if you know you've acted with integrity. So how do you get that key back? Start by asking yourself, what do I enjoy when no one's watching? Maybe it's walking at sunrise, reading in silence, working out, making something with your hands, learning something new. Make a list. It may seem simple, but it's a powerful reminder that happiness doesn't always come from being seen. It often lives in the moments you spend with yourself. Next, act without waiting for applause. Want to dress differently? Do it. Want to travel alone? Go. Want to start a project that lights you up, even if no one gets it? Start. Every decision made without asking for permission is like taking back another copy of your key. And when the urge comes to hand it over again, ask yourself this Stoic question. Does this depend on me or on others? If it depends on you, do it. If it depends on others, don't let it be the foundation of your happiness. This is a mindset Epictetus taught constantly, because he knew that freedom begins with that distinction. My friend, don't confuse this with selfishness. It's not about isolating yourself or rejecting others. It's about not mortgaging your peace. Because if your joy depends on everyone approving of you, there will always be someone who doesn't. But if your joy depends on what you control, then no one can take it from you. This might be the most common mental prison, believing you need external validation to be happy. And every time you give away your key, you reinforce the bars. But every time you choose to act by your own values, even if no one applauds, you weaken those bars. So ask yourself now, whose hands hold your key? And if you realize it's not with you, this is the moment to take it back. Because the door to your happiness doesn't open with anyone else's hand. Only you can turn the lock and step out of the invisible prison you've lived in for far too long. 8. Comparing yourself is chaining yourself. There's a mental prison that's both common and hard to detect: constant comparison. It's like carrying around a warped mirror, one that gives you a distorted reflection every time you look into it. And the worst part, that mirror won't shatter on its own. You have to make the decision to set it down. The Stoics warned about this long before social media even existed. Seneca wrote about how Roman senators competed over who had the biggest house, the most extravagant banquets, the finest robes. But that race never made them happier, only emptier. There was always someone with more, always someone ahead. And the more they compared, the more they became prisoners of their own dissatisfaction. Think about your own life. How many times have you felt like others are moving forward while you're stuck? Maybe it's seeing a coworker get promoted while you stay in the same position, or at a family gathering when someone brags about how well things are going and you don't know what to say, or even among friends, some already in relationships with homes or raising kids, while you're still wondering where to begin. And that's when the voice creeps in. They made it. I didn't. That voice is another guard in your mental prison. Marcus Aurelius dealt with something similar. As emperor, he could have lived constantly comparing himself to other rulers, obsessed with beating their power or their victories. But in his meditations, he reminded himself that the only comparison that truly mattered was with himself. Let each day find you a better man than the day before. That's the real measure, not what others are achieving, but whether you are moving forward on your path. My friend, comparison is dangerous because it has no end. Today you envy someone who earns more than you. Tomorrow, it's someone who travels more. The next day, someone who seems happier. And so there will always be someone ahead, someone who makes you feel like you're not enough. But what you don't see is that you too are someone others compare themselves to. A neighbor, a friend, a co-worker. Someone looks at you and thinks you're the one who's ahead. And yet neither of you feels at peace because you're both trapped in the same cell. So, how do you begin to escape this trap? First, stop feeding the jailer. If you know social media drags you into that game of distorted mirrors, set boundaries. Not because social media is evil, but because your mind needs room to remember that what you see there isn't real life. It's a curated showcase. Next, shift your focus. Stop counting what you lack and start appreciating what you already have. Seneca said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." Try this. At the end of your day, write down 3 things you value in your life. They can be as simple as a good conversation, a quiet morning, or the effort you gave today. That habit trains your mind to stop looking through the crooked mirror. And finally, turn comparison into inspiration. When you see someone achieving something you'd like for yourself, don't envy, ask, what can I learn from their path? That way, you turn poison into medicine. You use what you see out there not to feel smaller, but to grow, without losing your authenticity. Comparison is one of the cruelest prisons because it has no visible bars. No one forces you to enter, but you walk through the door every time you measure your worth against someone else. And the cruelest part? You'll never win. There will always be someone with more. The only way out is to drop the scale, and start building your own measure. Remember this: Epictetus warned that true freedom doesn't come from having more than others, but from learning to want less. When you understand that your value doesn't come from how you stack up against others, but from your own progress, the lock starts to open. So if you feel like you've been stuck in comparison for too long, handing over your key and getting lost in that mental prison, maybe it's time to take one more step. The video on screen is exactly the spark you need to start shifting your mindset and begin transforming your life from the inside out. 9. Freedom lives in embracing the uncertain. We live obsessed with having everything under control. We want to plan every detail, anticipate every move, know exactly what's going to happen at each step. We think that's how we'll stay safe, that if we control it all, we'll avoid pain. But the truth is, the more you fight to control the unpredictable, the more trapped you become in your own mind. And the Stoics already taught us, true freedom doesn't come from mastering every outcome. It comes from learning to live even in the middle of uncertainty. Think of someone who plans a trip like it's a military operation. Tightly packed schedules, restaurant reservations, routes mapped down to the minute. If something runs late or plans change, their calm vanishes. But the discomfort doesn't come from the delay. It comes from the inability to accept the unexpected. That person isn't enjoying the trip. They're locked inside a mental prison made of certainty. Marcus Aurelius saw it differently. He wrote that, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing. Dancing is a fixed choreography, each step predictable. Wrestling is chaotic, shifting, impossible to plan. Life is much more like the second. You can't rehearse every moment. You can only train yourself to respond, and that ability to adapt is what keeps you free." But what happens in real life? A new opportunity shows up, an unexpected project, a relationship that comes out of nowhere, a turn you didn't plan for, and instead of feeling excited, fear creeps in. What if I fail? What if I'm not ready? What if it goes wrong? That voice doesn't come from reality. It comes from your mind, which craves certainty. And when you listen to it, you choose the safety of the cell over the freedom of the unknown. Epictetus offered a simple exercise. Imagine the worst-case scenario. If you switch jobs, what's the worst that could happen? That you don't adapt? That you lose the position? That you have to look again? Sure, it's tough. But is it the end of the world? Most of the time, it's not. And when you break it down, you realize you could handle it. The catastrophe your mind imagines is almost always bigger than reality. Seneca said the same. We suffer more in imagination than in fact. And he was right. The fear of uncertainty doesn't come from what's happening. It comes from the movie you're directing in your head. It's like having a horror filmmaker living in your mind, making a film that's never going to be released. And yet you live trapped in that dark theater. My friend, look back on your life. How many of the best moments came when you least expected them? A person you met by chance, a small decision that changed everything, an opportunity that appeared out of nowhere. If you had kept everything under control, none of that would have happened. Uncertainty isn't the enemy. It's the door through which the unexpected enters and transforms you. The problem is, instead of embracing it, you try to build a fortress against it. And that wears you down. You want guarantees before you love, before you start something new, before you take a step. You want a full map before you walk. But life never gives out maps, only paths that appear as you walk. And if you insist on waiting for every certainty, you'll stay frozen, staring at a door that never opens. So how do you start breaking out of this prison? Do what the Stoics practiced. Accept in advance that not everything will be up to you. Yes, plan what you can, but understand that something will go off script. And instead of resisting it, welcome it as part of your training. Next time something changes your plans, instead of saying, "This ruined my day," say, "This is part of my day." That small shift in perspective changes everything. It puts you in the role of a fighter, not a victim. And with every adjustment, your mind gets stronger. Because in the end, uncertainty isn't what destroys you. What destroys you is the obsession with avoiding it. Every attempt at total control is another lock on your cell. Every time you choose to adapt instead of resist, you're forging a key. So don't run from the unknown, embrace it. Don't wait until you have all the answers before you act. Start walking, even if the path ahead is foggy. Because freedom doesn't come when everything is certain. It comes when you learn to move forward, even when you can't see the next step clearly. 10. Past doesn't trap you, it points the way. Imagine someone inherits an old map covered in marks and handwritten notes. It shows the routes their family once took, with warnings about dangerous paths and signs pointing to the safest roads. For years, this person follows the map exactly. Every turn, every decision, they check against it. If a path was crossed out, they wouldn't even look at it. If it wasn't drawn on the map, they assumed it didn't exist. And over time, what could have been a guide became a set of chains. That's exactly what happens with our past. We treat it like a sentence carved in stone, when really it's just a wrinkled piece of paper filled with the footprints of what we've lived. Yes, it holds experiences, lessons, mistakes, victories, but it does not determine everything that's to come. The problem is we confuse the map with a prison, and we end up stuck in routes that no longer make sense. Marcus Aurelius is the perfect example here. He reminded himself that the present is the only thing we truly own, and clinging to the past is a form of slavery. The past can teach you, yes, but it's not a place to live in. Carrying it like a backpack full of useless stones makes every step heavier, not because the path is impossible, but because you refuse to let go of what's inside. Think about it. How many times have you said things like, "I've always been like this," or "That's not for me, I already tried once"? Those words are invisible bars. Your story becomes your judge and jailer, limiting what you think is possible. Imagine someone once told you in school that you weren't good at public speaking. Maybe you froze once, someone laughed, and you internalized the message, "I'm not good at this." Years go by, and every time you have a chance to speak up in a meeting, share an idea, present something, you shrink back. Not because you can't do it today, but because you're still obeying an old map from your past. And the result? You miss opportunities that could have helped you grow. Seneca warned against this mistake. He said that recalling past pain is suffering it twice, and yet so many people stay stuck there, reliving humiliations, failures, regrets, like rewatching the same movie every night. The outcome? A prison that doesn't exist anymore in reality, but stays alive in the mind. Here's a little exercise for you. Picture your life as an open map in front of you. Mark the moments that shaped you, decisions, mistakes, wounds, wins. Then ask yourself, is this truly a limit? Or just a story I've told myself so many times I now believe it's permanent? After that, start sketching new paths, routes you never dared to explore. Maybe they seemed impossible before, but with the experience you've gained, they're now within reach. The next time you hear yourself say, "I've always been like this," stop and remember, you are not your past. You are what you choose to do today. The past is just a map with old routes, not the bars of your cell. You can use it as reference, but never as a sentence. And if you're still in doubt, consider what Mark Manson says, author of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F.I.K. Your past is not a predictor of your future, unless you use it as an excuse. Brutal, but true. As long as you keep repeating the same old stories to justify why you're not moving forward, you're reinforcing your cell. But the moment you choose to use those experiences as fuel, your past stops being a chain and becomes momentum. This is one of the trickiest mental prisons, believing that because you failed yesterday, you can't try again tomorrow. Believing that what someone did to you, or what you once chose, defines who you'll always be. But no, the truth is, every single day is a blank page. The map can come with you, but the key is in your hand. And now, I want you to write it out in the comments. What part of your past will you use as fuel instead of a chain? And if you don't want to go into detail, just write this sentence. Today, my past is a springboard, not a cell. 11. Overthinking is another kind of prison. How many times have you thought about changing your life, but all you did was think about it? How many times have you made lists, researched, watched videos, and ended up in the exact same place? Marcus Aurelius put it in simple words. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. And yet you and I both know it's easier to stay trapped in the idea than to take the first step. The problem isn't that you don't know what to do. The problem is that you confuse preparation with action. It's like buying a brand new oven and expecting it to cook by itself. You install it in your kitchen, look at it with excitement, imagine all the recipes you'll try, even buy the ingredients. But if you never turn on the heat, you're still going to be hungry. The oven's not the issue. The issue is you never used it. You convince yourself that writing a list of habits is the same as living them, that reading about discipline makes you disciplined, that watching workout routines is basically training. But no, none of that is doing. It's all just thinking. And harsh as it may sound, that's another mental cell your mind locks you into. The illusion of progress. You've probably lived it firsthand. You think about learning a language, but first you research the best app, the fastest method, the most complete course. Meanwhile, weeks go by, and you haven't spoken a single word. Or you decide to get in shape, but spend more time reading articles about workouts than doing a single push-up. What's the result? You're in the same place, but with the false sense that you made progress. That phenomenon has a name, analysis paralysis, and it's one of the most common prisons of our time. The overload of options holds you back because you're always sure there's something better out there. Patrick McGinnis even gave it a name, FOBO, fear of better options. And while you chase the perfect decision, all you're really doing is staying inside your cell, staring at the bars, telling yourself it's not the right time to leave. That's exactly what Seneca meant when he said that more time is wasted by indecision than by failure. And he was right. Most people don't fall because they acted and failed. They fall because they get stuck in a limbo of perfect plans that never become real. So how do you break that trap? Start small, even if it's clumsy, even if it turns out wrong. Want to write a book? Write a bad page. Want to learn to cook? Burn some eggs, but start. Want to run? Go out for 10 minutes, even if you're winded after 2. It's not perfection that creates change. It's repeated action. Here's another key. Shrink the distance between the impulse and the movement. If you think about getting up, get up right then. If you want to send that message, type it and hit send without overthinking. Every second you delay is another brick in your cell, but every immediate action, no matter how small, is a key turning in the lock. And if what's stopping you is the fear of looking ridiculous, practice what I call breaking the barrier with the absurd. Do something unusual on purpose. Sing out loud while walking. Wear something weird. Speak in public even if it's not perfect. You'll realize the world doesn't stop just because you mess up. And when you see that, the fear starts to lose its grip. The Stoics knew that overthinking is losing the battle before it even begins. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning not to get distracted with lofty speeches about virtue, but to live it through action. And that reminder is just as true for you. It doesn't matter what you dream, what you read, or what you plan. If you don't move, your life won't change. So next time you catch yourself overthinking, remember, you don't need another map. You need to walk. You don't need another idea. You need to light the fire. Because your mind can be your best ally or your worst jailer. And if you truly want to escape this invisible prison, you've got to start writing your story with steps, not just thoughts. 12. Guard the keys to your mind. Imagine someone walks into your house one morning without permission. They start criticizing your furniture, mocking your clothes, pointing at every corner saying it's ugly or poorly arranged. Then they pour themselves a cup of coffee, smash it on the floor, and call you useless for not cleaning it up fast enough. Would you let them stay? Of course not. You'd kick them out immediately. And yet, every day, you let thoughts just as toxic into your mind and allow them to settle in like permanent guests. Criticism you heard years ago, judgments from people you don't even respect, insecurities that didn't start with you, but that you've repeated so many times they now sound like your own voice. That's one of the most invisible bars of the mental prison, living as if every negative word has a right to stay inside your head. Marcus Aurelius understood this clearly. He wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And he didn't mean that as poetry. He meant it as survival. He knew that an emperor could face entire armies and still come out victorious. But letting the wrong ideas into your mind could cost you the most important battle of all, the one inside your head. And today, that battle is harder than ever. It's not just what someone says to your face, it's everything you consume. Every notification, every comment on social media, every alarming headline is an open door for doubt, fear, and comparison to slip in. And the danger is, they don't make noise when they enter. They creep in silently, until one day you wake up exhausted, not knowing why, when in truth you've been feeding your mind garbage for months. Has this ever happened to you? You feel ready to take a big step, waking up earlier, starting a project, changing direction. You feel energized, excited, convinced it's the right move, but then comes the phrase that clips your wings. That's not going to work. You'll regret it. Better to stay where it's safe. And here's the thing, those voices aren't always yours. Sometimes they come from something you heard years ago, from someone speaking out of their own fear, or from family who, without meaning to, passed down their insecurity. The issue isn't that they said it. The issue is you held on to it like it was absolute truth. And that's where the trap begins. It's not others who sabotage you. It's you, repeating their words until they become the bars of your own cell. So how do you start taking back control? First, put a conscious filter on your thoughts. Every time one enters, ask yourself, does this help me or drain me? If it leaves you weaker, tag it as mental garbage and throw it out. Next, change the way you treat your mind. Imagine it's your home. Would you let just anyone in to insult your space? Of course not. Do the same with your thoughts. Seneca had a very practical piece of advice. Spend time cleaning your inner world just like you'd clean your house. Don't let the dust of criticism pile up, because eventually, everything will look cloudy. A messy mind isn't built overnight. It gets cluttered slowly, with thoughts that never should have made it through the door. And here's the most important part. Make room only for what strengthens you. This isn't about flooding your mind with cheesy phrases. It's about surrounding yourself with ideas that move you to act. Want an easy example? Start by remembering what you have achieved, what you have learned, what you have overcome. Just like a home needs light and fresh air, your mind needs thoughts that restore your energy, not drain it. The cruelest mental prison is the one you build from other people's words, because it's not them who stay locked inside. It's you repeating and reinforcing what they once said. But if you start guarding that door, if you choose who gets access, you'll realize much of your suffering didn't come from what happened on the outside, but from what you allowed in. My friend, remember this. Your mind is your home, and you hold the key. Keep out what pollutes it. Let in only what builds it. And you'll see how, little by little, the bars begin to weaken. Because to escape the mental prison, opening the door isn't enough. You have to be sure of what and who you allow to cross the threshold. Escaping the mental prison doesn't mean silencing your mind forever. It means learning to become the guardian of its gates. It means choosing which thoughts deserve to stay and which ones must go. It means deciding who gets space in your mind and who doesn't. My friend, freedom begins the moment you stop waiting for someone else to set you free and realize the key was always in your pocket. And if you've made it this far, write it down in the comments. Tell us, what chain are you breaking today? And if you don't know what to say, just write this: I hold the key to my mind. Reaching the end of this video is no accident. It means something in you wants to grow, and that already sets you apart from most. Subscribe and share this video with someone who needs it. That simple gesture helps us keep spreading this message of growth. On screen, you'll find a playlist to go even deeper. Click and let's keep learning together.